Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Happy Shochu'sday from Stephen and I here live in Japan to all of you around the world. Kanpai. And how's everything going? It's still scorching in Japan. We're hitting records. It's fantastic because you always want to be a winner, and the end is nigh. How you doing, Stephen?
Good. I'm doing all right. I actually don't mind the heat, having grown up in Florida. I It's kind of my native habitat. So I remember playing soccer on summer afternoons, 95 degrees and 80% humidity in Florida. Kind of enjoying that.
Love it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
apparently over here up in Tokyo anyway. It's 37 degrees Celsius. Feels like 47,
Yeah.
which means that you're gonna die. So
Yeah.
it's new exciting times, but that kind of ties in with the main theme of our show today. Obviously, these new temperature records and sustained high heat and everything is not great for agriculture. Depending on where you are, I think probably in some parts of
Sure.
the world it's up north and way down in the southern hemisphere, further to the south, you're getting expanded growing seasons. So maybe that's a good thing. With
Right,
that
right, right.
comes all sorts of other issues, though. We've got critters that don't belong in this part of the world finding that they can happily inhabit that space now. And that is certainly the case where I grew up in Vermont, which tends to have, I can't remember what level growing season it typically had when I was a kid. That has changed. It now has a more southerly growing season, the duration of which makes it
Mm-hmm.
possible to grow things you never could before. So, yeah, we'll keep a smile on our face, but these things are not great. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but before we dig too deeply into that, do we have any news? Is there anything going on? Any booze news or anything?
I
Because
guess
I can
the
flip that
big
over
thing that
right
I've
now.
the big thing I've had my eye on, I guess, just through social media and whatnot, is that the Tales of the Cocktail just happened in New Orleans. Uh, big Biggest cocktail show in America, and loads and loads of people who we know were there, uh, such as Emma Jansen, who was nominated for best cocktail book, with Julia Momose for their Way of the Cocktail,
Yeah.
and did not win, but honored to be nominated, as
Uh
always.
huh.
Winner, of course, was David Wondrich and Noah Rothbaum for
Oh yeah.
the
This guy.
massive
This guy
contribution.
right here.
Yeah, which I do not yet have a copy of, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to lug it back on my flight when I come back from the States next time.
This is significant. This is like
Yeah,
2 bottles of booze.
yeah.
Yeah, the Oxford Companion to Spirits and Cocktails. Not really a surprise that they won.
Sure.
It's just such a significant resource, and the editing of which required so much work, so much herding of cats, and the whole 9 yards. And so, yes, this is great. I gave it to every member of my family as a Christmas present. Anybody who cares just a little bit about spirits and cocktails probably is gonna want to have this.
Hmm, hmm.
And yeah, David Wondrich and Noah Rothbaum, hats off to you, because that was a daunting task that they were able to pull off during the pandemic. So good for
Yep.
congratulations.
Yeah. No, really, really well deserved. And the other Spirited Award notables, I guess the big one was Katana Kitten seemed to win everything. Um,
They are the bee's knees right now. They just, no matter whatever's going on, they're gonna win for the time
yeah,
being. I
yeah,
think. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, that's a Manhattan cocktail bar, uh, Japanese themes, lots of highballs, lots of really creative cocktails,
Great,
and nice
great
food too.
energy in there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, really, really fun place. So, yeah,
Yep.
good for them. And the nice thing about going and looking at those awards, and even just the nomination list, is to find bars and cities that you might be visiting that you just have never heard of. Right?
Yep.
You get
Absolutely.
introduced to new places, and so I was able to bookmark a few places that if I'm ever in Albuquerque now, I know where to go and have a drink.
Right.
For example, I don't know when I'm going to be in Albuquerque. I would like to visit New Mexico again, but it's been a while. Um, so but anyway, yeah, Tales of the Cocktail, lots of great information. There were some really cool panels as well. So I don't know. I don't think they have them archived for streaming or anything, but just if you dig around a little bit on their website and then look at some of the reporting on what was going on, you'll find some pretty cool stuff in the drinks world. So that's, I guess, our booze news of sorts.
That was a good one.
And yeah,
Nice.
I've been there. I went twice. I went in, I think, 16 and 18. Not really in a rush to go back because you end up not being sober for 4 days and not getting a lot of sleep, and
the most common phrase or word used to describe it is, and I'm not making this up, but it shows up all the time, is shit show. And I think that's because, and especially because, it's all sorts of the royalty from the drinks world getting together, and this year must have been on fire because it was a reunion of sorts, like after several years off, kind of like Bar Convent Brooklyn was last August when we went. But yeah, it's I'm sure it's pretty high energy, lots and lots of socializing and networking, and pretty much very little time to rest. And you're in New Orleans too, so that just cranks it up to 11 automatically. I haven't been. I'm sure at some point I will go, but I just, having heard from you and from others, that you'll notice I haven't been hankering to get over there in June or July or whenever they usually host it.
Yeah, I think we should do it together. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth experiencing. What I recognized actually from a couple of people I talked to who went is that it had a different vibe this year. It had almost reached a carnivalesque level of activity where you had these, basically some of the large spirits brands would basically do street buyouts, and they would throw these enormous block parties, or they would take over some huge, whether it's a church or a school or something, and they would basically have these massive parties with just thousands of guests, and the whole game was to chase after getting an invite to those, right? Because that's where you wanted to be. That's because you wanted to be seen where all the cool kids were. And I think that my understanding is that largely changed this year. It became much more small venues, small events, less of that sort of massive house party, not even house party, like rave kind of feeling. Seems to have dissipated or even disappeared. I'm wondering if maybe
COVID might have had something to do with that.
Right, exactly. You don't want to have 2,000 or 3,000 people unmasked in an enclosed space drinking.
That, and you also don't want to invest in something that you're not sure is gonna go the way you want it to go. This may have been kind of like Bar Convent Brooklyn was last year, a little bit of a testing the waters type of endeavor, right? We know that this year at Bar Convent Brooklyn, the JSS got involved and threw some money around because they knew it was going to happen, and they knew that it was going to be worth their while to get together a bunch of different concerned parties to pimp shochu and awamori, which they did successfully this year, and they didn't even consider it last year. So maybe next year they'll take it to the next level.
Apparently at BCB they also had a very good shochu cocktail talk, which is nice to hear. Don Lee, the bartender and drinks consultant, apparently did a really nice talk. So yeah, cool. Pretty good booze news. Tengu Zakura 35. That's the
nice choice, Chris. Over on YouTube.
Yaki imo, isn't it? That's
it's funky.
Roasted sweet potato shochu. Yeah. Cool.
That's good. I imagine he may have commandeered that from Umami Mart, but I guess it could have been some other place as well now. They've been in market for a little while. Moving on to the main event, the sweet potato blight. And we've talked about this quite a bit before. This is it's a fungus that is affecting sweet potatoes, and surprise, surprise, it got its start down in southern Japan. The first couple of places for it to hit were Okinawa and Kagoshima back in 2018, and this is causing all sorts of headaches. And I'll show you what it looks like, just so that everybody knows what this blight is. But it's a type of rot, and I think in English I've seen it referred to as foot rot or base rot, and it's real easy to see. You let me share this particular Chrome tab right here. Which one are you? This guy? Is it you? It's this guy. Okay, so no, it's not that guy. Damn it. Okay, well, this is useful too. I was looking at this. This is from the Yomiuri Shimbun, the Yomiuri newspaper from last year. And it shows the progression of the blight. You can see this light blue down here in Kagoshima and Okinawa is where it started in 2018. 2019, it crept up into Miyazaki. And this is a issue with the sweet potato seedlings. So they come infected with it, and this blight has been found in Taiwan, in China, in the United States even, and you can see that in 2020 it made it up, it spread a little bit, and then last year it spread a whole lot more, even making it to Tokyo and all the way up into Hokkaido, and who knows how far it's spread this year in 2022. I can only imagine that it's most of the country now, and this is an issue because yes, it's creating potatoes that you can't eat. You can't put them in the shochu fermentation. They are kind of gross looking. And again, let me see if let me share a different screen to show you how gross they are. I
hope nobody's enjoying their dinner right now.
Yeah.
Especially not eating sweet potatoes.
It kind of just turns stuff, you can see all these, it turns the sweet potato a very unsightly looking, it's just rotten, I guess is the best way to put it. It affects the root, and it'll spread up into the at least half of the sweet potato or part of it, and it's doing the same thing to the viable crops. It's cutting harvest by like 50% in many cases, and this is something that's affecting several different types of sweet potato. You can tell here that these are all red or purple sweet potatoes. Anno Imo down on Tanegashima, that island happens to be quite famous for Anno Imo product. They're getting railed by it too, and it's I mean, a few years ago, the harvest from Tanegashima, which is part of Kagoshima, was 10,000 metric tons, I believe, and then I think in 2020 it was down to 5,000 metric tons of Anno Imo sweet potatoes, which is this it's really sweet, like honeyed sweetness type of sweet potato, and it has this really gooey texture, so it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with because it's going to be hard to clean. And then last year they were down to 3,000 metric tons from the harvest, so that's like cutting more than 66%, more than 2/3, 17%.
Sure.
So this is really, really not good. And it's forced all sorts of changes in the industry.
Definitely not. I think the it's probably going to do a few different things. It's interesting. So the Anno Imo, just for context for folks back at least in the US and probably in Europe as well, that's what we tend to think of as a sweet potato in the United States. That's what you're going to find at your local grocery store, is that variety. But here in Japan, we've got 500 different cultivars or so of sweet potatoes. Yeah. So fortunately, it's not affecting every kind. So I think what we're going to see is a shift toward cultivation of those potatoes that have not been affected. So maybe something like Joy White or some of the other styles. And what it could end up doing is changing the profile of sweet potato shochu over the next decade or so, of what we expect from a sweet potato shochu. If Kogane Sengan can't survive this, or is no longer a viable agricultural choice, and that's what most sweet potato shochu is made from, then there's going to have to be a shift. And the other thing it's going to do is create scarcity for some of the brands. I mean, Yamato Zakura, for example, was only able to make 60 batches last year, where he normally makes 100. So he lost 40% of his annual production, and there's no making that up. It's just gone. That's shochu that will never be made, and revenue that he will never be able to earn. And so we've heard similar stories from some of the other smaller makers, where some of them have already announced that they either are not going to be selling anything for a few months to rebuild stocks, or they're not gonna export anything in the near future because they just don't have enough available to sell. They won't have excess stock. They'll sell everything they can here in Japan, and so that means fewer brands available overseas. And so if you've got them, enjoy them.
Yeah, at a minimum, wherever you are in the world, you may want to get out there and grab whatever sweet potato shochu you can find, because at the very least, prices are going up. And so whatever you see that on the shelf at right now, that's the lowest it's going to get for a while. I think it's safe to say. So go grab it.
Sure.
And enjoy it, love it, cuddle with it, appreciate it. And to be honest with you, it is really an appreciation more than a hoarding type of activity, because these makers need reorders right now. They probably do have tanks of stock from a few years ago that they can use, but they need that revenue to get through this really tough time. So please go buy some sweet potato shochu if you happen to have some in near where you live. The other thing that is happening as a reaction to this, and we haven't even gotten into the schedule changes yet, but certain government-run labs and university laboratories are working on producing seedlings that are resistant to this particular type of blight. Just talking to people at Kagoshima National, and some of the communication that I've seen between them and entities up in Miyazaki, Kumamoto, and in Tokyo has shown that very quickly there's a mobilization of attention to this problem. This is going to gut the industry. Everybody knows it, and they're trying to find some workarounds. One being varietal rotation, but others are actually it's splicing together something that's slightly different, that's going to be a little bit more effective, a little hardier in the face of this filamentous fungus invasion.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think, and you're right, prices will go up. There's less potatoes available, so there's going to be more demand for those that are available. And so, right. And I think that's part of why some of the makers, as you mentioned, with the production schedules, have shifted earlier, because they want to get the potatoes out of the ground before the blight takes hold, so that they have more viable potatoes to work with, even if they're smaller, right? They're harvesting them before they're fully, as large as they would like, but they just realize, like, it's better to make the shochu with something that's maybe 70 or 80% grown than waiting for 100% if we're going to be able to get more actual yield out of it. So I was really surprised, because normally it's I guess the social media posts, a lot of the distillers will, it's kind of a tradition in Japan. They will do Shinto ceremonies in the distilleries, or the production team will go to a local shrine, basically to pray for a good season, that they'll be able to make good shochu this year. And normally that social media starts to appear in mid-August, I feel. It's when you start to see those pictures. I saw one or two in July.
Yeah, they definitely have
already starting production. I know Komasa's pictures showed up yesterday, or maybe just in the last couple of days.
Ogatama Yamamoto was as well. They showed this potatoes coming in.
And they're all racing each other for access to the crops, right? It's not great. Again, we'll see what happens with the smaller makers. I do know, it's interesting, and I'm wondering how this will shift as well. Tekon, for a while, has thought about making another style of shochu when it's not sweet potato season. He's talked to me about making. So Yamata Zakura used to make rice shochu, so I think his idea is to bring back that legacy and make some rice shochu in the off season. But then he feels a little bit handcuffed, because he's like, I don't really know how to make rice shochu. I just know how to make sweet potato. And
he doesn't want to do something that he's not confident he can do really well. So
exactly. Totally, so he's talked about going and training at one of the well-known rice shochu makers to learn the process, and then maybe he's going to start making rice shochu again. And the other thing I think we may see, as you mentioned, that at the top of the show, that the agricultural the viability is moving north, right? As with climate change, and so we may see that sweet potatoes from the Tohoku region become, much more quote unquote famous, or much higher crop yields from different parts of Japan rather than down in
Possible.
the south,
think
where
they
maybe
have. I
it's
think they have better soil quality up there. I'm not sure sweet potatoes would grow as well. They don't have the
yeah,
same ashy, sandy soil that they have down in
sure,
Satsuma. But yeah, no,
yeah.
you're right. It could change. There could be new frontiers for this. Absolutely. I found some data from 2018, which said a kilo of, this is about price increases. A kilo of sweet potatoes cost about $4.50 back then for shochu distilleries, and as recently as 2021, the price was $5.50, and this was
Okay.
before. I think this data came out before they really knew how bad the 2021 harvest was going to be, and this year's even worse. So yeah, the scarcity has everybody competing, as you said, and I
Yeah.
can only imagine that we're up over $6 per kilo, and that's, compared to a few years ago, what is that? That's nearly, we're getting close to a 40% increase on the cost of your raw materials, and that's not something that the distillery can just absorb. So that's going to be
Right,
that's going
right.
to be reflected in pricing all the way down the channel to the store shelf.
Yep. Yep. No, and we recently heard from one of our good friends in the industry that he's raising prices 15% across the board. It's just,
Yep.
and it's simply increased raw material costs.
Yep.
His labor and his equipment and everything costs what it's always cost, but raw materials. So
Yeah,
it's
not awesome. Go buy some sweet potato shochu once this show is over. But before you leave, everybody, we're gonna drink some.
if you think about it, it is. I mean, because these are spirits, right? They will just stay. They will keep. So yeah, buy some and keep it, because in a decade maybe that style doesn't exist anymore.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, I'm
Maybe it's
laughing
changed,
because
like,
I'm trying
yeah.
not to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think it may be an opportunity for some of the other potato varieties to shine for a little while.
Oh,
though.
absolutely. Yeah.
Kogane Sengan's been dominant for so long.
Yeah,
But
and there are some other very viable strains out there that just need an opportunity, really. But it's, from an agricultural perspective, and I'm sure folks around the world will understand this. It's really hard to take on something new unless somebody forces your hand, because if something's already working, to completely shift these fields to your entire operation to accommodate a new agricultural product is not a small feat. So. But you're right. Maybe this is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back. So we may see an increased uptake in some of these hybrid varietals. It took Joy White a long time to get going. It really hasn't gotten going yet, but maybe it will now, as you said.
Yeah, and I've actually found myself enjoying Joy White recently. Some of the shochu I've tried, I've actually really really liked, and so I've started to look for it as an alternative when I'm looking for sweet potato shochu. But unfortunately, our Rakuen today is not sweet potato.
Not at all. Yeah, it's 100%
Well, maybe
barley. So the Rakuen label today, yours is better, is from Kubos Shuzojo, which is in Nagasaki Prefecture. This is not an Iki Jochu, though. This is not out on Iki Island. It's not the rice koji barley shochu that we know and love from that island. This is 100% barley, and it's from the Sei Ippatsu vein at Kubo Shuzojo. This is their very famous brand. 25% ABV, 100% barley, as I said before, and it's very, very barley on the nosy.
This is the first time I've seen this where they actually put the brand's logo on the
cute.
back of the
I
bottle.
like that.
Yeah. It's a nice touch.
More of them had done that. And we're just gonna nose this. Apologies to everybody out there. I hope if it's quitting time around the world that you have something interesting in hand.
That is a nice aroma. It's got a nice. It's got some fruit.
Yep, and this is apparently the special thing about this is that it was their 2011 distillation. So this
Oh wow! So
this
it's got
is
some
was 10 years when it hit the bottle last year
nice.
for 2021. Aged shoju. It doesn't really well, it probably does say somewhere, but I would have to read at a much faster pace. It's got a little bit, as you said, a fruitiness, a little bit of a minerality, almost an herbal quality to it. Kanpai.
Kanpai.
That's nice. It's got plenty going on. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
This goes with an aji dish. What is aji in English? I can never remember fish names in English. Aji, and then
it's a mackerel of some sort, isn't
mackerel. Yeah, and I like this dish that they recommend is actually was proposed by one of my favorite izakaya in Tokyo. This is Gozo Roppu. Great place.
it? Horse mackerel.
Horse mackerel. Okay, and yeah, this is just a really cool tiny little distillery out on the coast. I think on the
Nice.
kind of on the east side of Nagasaki proper. Not the easiest place to get to. There's a ring train line that kind of goes out there, and I've taken it before, and it's a nice jaunt, but you are kind of off on your own a little bit.
Sure. I've never been to that part of Nagasaki, but that's where Kazuo Yoshida is from, the chef, the sushi chef in New York, is one of my favorite sushi chefs. He's from that part of Nagasaki. So
I'm
been meaning to get out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We gotta do some more work down in Nagasaki. This is Maya's chiming in with some very important information. This brings us back to our talk of the seedlings and the potato blight. She said there aren't enough of them, and that makes sense. I'm sure there aren't.
Sure.
And so they can't give them the proper. They can't kick the tires on this properly yet. So it's going to be very risky for farmers to just. Blind faith is not something that farmers down in Kagoshima peddle in. So
Sure.
they're going to stick with what and hope for the best, and then inspect their crops more carefully throughout the process and try and weed out anything that seems to be going south, and make sure it doesn't infect other plants within the rows in the fields. It's a lot of extra work, obviously.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah. Such are the times. Okay, I'll hide that. So, what did I do? You would think I would know how to use this interface by now. So, cool.
Yeah, it's a nice show today. I like the 10-year-old barley. Who knew?
All right.
Nice. All right.
If anybody wants to come over here and help me kill all of these little 300 milliliter bottles of Rakanen stuff, I would appreciate it. Let's see. Moving on to our last banner of the day, either newly opened or bottle kill. You can do whichever you want, Stephen. You got something for us?
Yeah, I've got a newly opened. This was a gift for a favor I did for one of my colleagues. This is Matsufuji Awamori. This is a 3-year kusu, so aged 3 years. And what's interesting about it's actually a 3-day koji.
Yeah, they
So,
do
unlike-
almost all of their kojis 3-day. Yeah.
Yeah, unlike Yoka Koji, which is a 4-day koji, this is a 3-day koji from Matsufuji. Came in a really nice package. Obviously, you can see the nice glass. These are designed for gifts when they come like this. It's a 500 ml. Yeah, it's been nice. 43% alcohol, and of course, I loved my aged awamori. So the gentleman who gave me this did a very nice job. So thank you.
Nice.
Yeah,
Sounds like a good one.
For sure.
I've got a bottle kill to share. This is Furusawa Jozo Ikkoshun sweet potato shochu.
Oh, nice.
25% ABV. This disappeared in a heartbeat, and it's got that, that strong bottle that we use or similar to the colorful bottle, isn't it?
Pretty close, isn't it? That's what I thought you were picking.
Yes, this is obviously this is JDM 720 mil, and colorful's a 750. So there's a stature difference, a slight difference in stature.
Yep.
Extra shot in the colorful. This is not nearly as bright. It's a more staid and I don't know, almost feels a little older type of sweet potato shochu that I destroyed in a couple of evenings while reading a book. So
nice.
That's my bottle kill.
Yeah, well, Furusawa tends to make pretty traditional type stuff. She's not making the bright fruity modern style, and I don't think she will. But yeah, good stuff. I guess just a couple of updates as we wrap up. We have a new podcast episode next week be coming out. We have finally tackled yeast. So we will have a yeast podcast episode early to mid next week. And on Shochu'sday next week, we will actually have a guest. I will be speaking with Armando, who many of you in the Japanese drinks community probably know and love. He's a prolific Instagrammer and has an incredible whiskey collection. He lives here in Japan, and he's full of life. He's going to be a fun conversation. So we're going to have him on and talk a little bit about Japanese whiskey, what he's interested in recently, like what new things from distilleries he's excited about, what he's heard, kind of an update on Japanese whiskey from somebody here living in Japan who is definitely dedicated to Japanese whiskey. So that should be a fun chat. Yeah.
I will be on assignment in Okinawa, so I'm taking next week off. So yeah, enjoy that, everybody.
Yeah,
and
should be fun.
That'll be episode number 116 in this epic journey. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Great.
Okay. So I think that's it for today, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, what we just had a comment came through. Thank you, Fletcher, over on Facebook. Yeah, looking forward to the yeast podcast. Yeah, it's an information packed podcast about yeast. So little something in there for the novice and then probably also people who are making drinks at home. Maybe can get something new from that. If I may be so bold. But anyways, we will be back again. Stephen will be back with Armando next week. You heard it here first, same time, same place. And yeah, we're out. Thank you so much for your ears and eyeballs and maybe even livers, and from both of us here in Japan, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.